So I've been investigating the idea of mechanical animals and clockwork animals and looking at the steampunk style that was very popular a few years ago. I created this dragon chasing this man. I created this painting of a mechanical dragon with wheels instead of legs. I created this painting of a mechanical dragonfly and I animated it. And what I want to show you is what I looked at before I started to paint. So this is from a print by M.C. Escher. It's a type of bug he invented called a roll-up. And these are some images of steampunk animals I found on the internet. Now, the animals that I picked, I specifically was looking for... this is from Howl's Moving Castle, by the way, this one. But I specifically looked for mechanical animals that I could see how they moved mechanically. It wasn't just somebody made an outline of an animal and filled it with gears, but that the animal actually, each gear worked in a certain way to create some sort of movement. So with this rabbit, I could tell how it would leap by the way the legs were put together. This is a clockwork owl, but I could sort of see how the gears and mechanisms went together. The same with this bee, and the same with this ostrich and the seahorse. There was a lot of really bad steampunk stuff out there. This next one you're going to see is wonderful. It really is showing how the bird actually flies. I can really see the mechanics of the wings. It reminds me of a Leonardo da Vinci sketch. And this one too, the steampunk hummingbird. So I was inspired by a lot of mechanical animals, and then I started thinking about gears, how gears interlock with each other and how gears move each other, large gears, small gears. And I started playing around with different gear images and thinking about how gears can create movement and transfer power and from one thing to another, and how clockwork mechanisms work. I created this little animation of a gear revolving around, and I want to talk about how one draws a form in three-dimensional space, because I think it's very important for how you design things. So what I'm doing is I'm just drawing a little 2-point perspective box, and I'm going to put a dot in the middle of each side of the box and connect those dots to make an ellipse. And then I'm going to find the middle of that ellipse by just making lines that crisscross it. And those lines can become the teeth of the gears. Now, because this gear happens to be below the horizon line, I'm looking down at it. And the next gear is going to be above the horizon line, so I'll be looking up at it. And I'm going to just outline the parts that I want in my final drawing. I'm not outlining the construction lines. I'm just outlining the finished gear itself. And now I'm going to think about how an axle would work with that gear, and where a gear above the horizon line on the other side of that axle would work. So I'm just repeating the same steps over again and creating another gear above the horizon line. Now I want to animate the gear, so I've got to think about how it's going to move and what direction it's going to move in, and how the teeth of the gears are going to look different because they're drawn in perspective. If it was just a gear that was facing towards you, like in the dragon at the very beginning of the video, well, that's very easy, because all you have to do is take the wheel and turn it, and then take another picture, and then turn it again and take another picture, and keep doing that. But it's a little different when the gears are facing away from you and they're in perspective. You actually have to think about how they're going to turn, and you have to think about the three-dimensional form in space. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to cut some tracing paper. I'm going to redraw the gears onto the tracing paper, and I'm going to just change the position of the teeth of the gears. So I'm going to create a sequence of maybe 3 pictures where the gears are in slightly different positions, and it looks like the gear is turning clockwise. So let me just show you that process. I'm just basically tracing the outline of the gear, but I'm changing the position of the teeth. It takes a little bit of thought. You actually have to imagine a three-dimensional form in space. You can't just copy. And once you've envisioned that form in space, you're going to take the piece of tracing paper and you're going to actually cut out the new set of gears. And once you've cut them out, you're going to overlay them on top of the old gear, and you're going to create a new composition with the gear in a slightly different position. So here I am recreating the top gear, figuring out where the teeth would go in a slightly different position. And then I'm going to cut them out with the scissors, and I'm going to recreate pretty much the exact picture, but with the gears in a slightly different position. I skipped past the part where I did the actual cutting. You see me coming in with the scissors, and then you see in the next scene the gears already cut out. So now that I have the gears cut out, I'm going to put another piece of paper on top. I'm going to trace through the axle because that didn't change, and I'm positioning the gears on the top and bottom that I've just made, and I'm going to photograph. I actually made the gears in 3 different positions, and I photographed all of them, and now I'm going to use what's called a background burner, which is just a website that you can get on your laptop, which actually removes the background from each gear. When I was done removing the background, I exported the image as a PNG, a portable network graphic with a transparent background. And then I went to the WIC editor, which is an extremely easy program to use. And you just load you import the frames, which I've covered in another video, which I'll link in the description. You import the frames, and you actually can make an animation out of your drawings. So here I am removing the background with the WIC editor. Red means remove, and green means add, so you can actually refine your selection until you have the exact parts that you want, and the exact parts that you don't want deleted. It's a very, very, very easy way to remove the background from your drawings. It works best if you use a really crisp outline, which is why I like to outline things in Sharpie, because it knows where to stop if you have a thick line there. So I'm just removing the background from the 3 frames, and once I'm done, I'm going to put them into the WIC editor. I'm going to keep repeating the frames over and over again as the wheel turns. And what you're going to see is my finished animation of the little axle and wheel turning. Now, the point that I'd like to make in this video, though, is that it's very important to actually look at artwork and get ideas from other artists as you are creating something new. And that's part of what enabled me to create some interesting images, is the artwork that inspired me. You're really going to miss out on playing with a lot of fun, interesting ideas and developing something original. It's very important to gather ideas from other artists and to really think about your artwork and have fun developing ideas. The more time you spend on your artwork, the more time other people will want to spend looking at your artwork. And the more fun you have developing your ideas, the more fun other people will have looking at your art too.